Hello everyone, Callum from the GSMA. Getting this finalised and then we should be able to get started. Hello everyone, Callum from the GSMA. Hello everyone, thank you for your patience and welcome to our webinar on how innovation can drive rural connectivity, where we'll be sharing insights and conclusions from our recent report of the same name. Over the next 20 or so minutes, I'm going to highlight the need for innovation in enabling rural mobile internet connectivity, and then explore innovations in base stations, backhaul, energy, and the underlying business models that drive the rollout of mobile internet. I should also say we're kind of noticing a slight delay between myself talking and the slides moving. We've got the chat box open, so if you have any questions as we go, you can pick those up at the end, but please do let us know if you have any technical difficulties. First, before we get into the main presentation, I'd like to highlight why driving rural mobile internet connectivity is such an important priority. The internet is driving economic growth and societal development, enabling access to life-enhancing services and creating multiple opportunities for citizens and businesses to thrive. At the GSMA, our Mobile for Development Foundation works with operators and others in the mobile industry to enable the development, pilot, and scaling of life-saving and life-changing mobile-delivered products and services. This ranges from mobile-delivered agricultural nutrition information through to exploring the potential of digital identity and identifying how to ensure equity in digital skills and ownership. We recently published our 10 years of Mobile for Development page on our website. The link is there on the screen, and I'd recommend that you all check it out. I'd also like to briefly mention a little bit about our program, Connected Society Program. This was established by the GSMA with support from donor and industry partners to increase access to and adoption of the mobile internet. Our focus is on underserved population groups in emerging markets. As highlighted on this slide, our work can be divided into 3 areas: insights, support to mobile operators and their partners, and advocacy. More specifically, our work focuses on 5 barriers to mobile internet adoption listed here. In particular, mobile internet needs to be accessible to citizens. There are often challenges in accessing network coverage, handsets, electricity and mobile agents, as well as identity documents required to open mobile accounts. The internet also needs to be affordable. Connectivity and device costs can be a significant barrier to adoption and are often cited as the greatest barrier to mobile ownership and internet access in research that we've conducted around the world. The internet needs to be usable, particularly for those who have lower levels of digital literacy and confidence. Lack of awareness of the internet and how it is relevant to lives and livelihoods can be a particular barrier. Lower levels of skills and confidence can also limit uptake, which can also result in only a limited number of applications and services being used. The internet also needs to be safe and secure. It is important to address the safety, security, and harassment concerns that inhibit citizens from benefiting from or even wanting to access and use the internet. Finally, the internet needs to be relevant. Products and services need to be developed based on an understanding of local needs, circumstances, and preferences. Beyond this work here, we also collaborate with other GSMA teams, in particular the Future Networks team, who I'll mention shortly. Many of these areas will also get people using the mobile internet, but before this, we need to provide access to mobile internet coverage. So, related to this, and moving to the main presentation, when we talk about connected or unconnected communities, we split the global population into 3 distinct groups. First are those individuals who are connected to the mobile internet, what we call the connected group. You can see in red on the graph there. Second are those individuals who live within the footprint of 3G or 4G mobile internet connectivity, but who aren't using the mobile internet. We call this the usage gap, and it's the black portion of the graph on the screen. And finally, we focus on those not covered by mobile internet, what we call a coverage gap, in teal on the graph. The focus of this presentation, and the work I'm going to walk you through, is on the coverage gap, that teal coloured segment, which I've highlighted here. As I've just mentioned, it's essential that everyone is able to benefit from the potential that the internet can afford. And in order to do this, we need to close the coverage gap and ensure that everyone is within the footprint of a mobile broadband network. As the chart highlights, the coverage gap isn't equitable. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, 30% of people do not have mobile internet connectivity. This equates to 300 million people and is the largest coverage gap in the world. In fact, this 300 million uncovered accounts for 40% of the global population not covered by a mobile broadband network. More widely and globally, across all regions, we also often see that individuals living in remote or rural locations are particularly less likely to have mobile internet connectivity. Again, this is particularly the case in sub-Saharan Africa, with particularly dispersed and disparate populations, but also holds true elsewhere in the world. So, why is the coverage gap an issue? A particular factor is the cost of infrastructure rollouts for network operators. As this graph here shows, the cost of a mobile internet deployment can be broadly split into 4 areas. First, a tower and civil works, the activities needed to build and install network equipment. Second, the active network costs, the operational cost of running a mobile network. Third, is the cost of providing backhaul, the technology that connects a mast or similar structure with a core network, allowing calls and data to be routed. And fourthly, are power costs. The cost of network deployment and operation, capital expenditure, CapEx, and operational expenditure, OpEx, in rural and remote areas is often prohibitive. In these settings, costs are much higher compared to urban deployments, in many areas as much as twice as high. This issue is exacerbated by the fact that the average revenue generated by a rural site is often 10 times lower than that of an urban deployment. This is often because of sparser and poorer populations. All of these factors can make rural and remote rollouts difficult, if not impossible, for network operators, who are obviously commercial entities. However, and as we'll explore today, innovation can play a key role in solving this challenge by reducing network deployment and operational costs. But where can innovation play the biggest role? Our previous work has highlighted that base stations, backhaul, and energy are considerable cost factors in network deployment, and particularly in rural and remote areas. Base stations are the equipment that provide mobile internet coverage to an area. These can be large macro cells, typically hosted on top of large towers, which in turn require extensive civil works. Base stations also include small cells, which can be sited on less extensive equipment. Either way, they can be a complex piece of technology requiring engineer attendance for setup and maintenance. Backhaul is a technology that connects the base station to the core network, allowing data, voice, and other traffic to be routed from a local area through to another destination. In urban settings, fiber optic connectivity often provides backhaul, but in more remote areas, fiber rollouts aren't feasible. Instead, expensive satellite backhaul links are used, or microwave if topology allows. Finally, cell sites require a reliable and cost-efficient power supply in order for network equipment to function. In many rural areas where there's little to no national grid presence, this can be impossible. Instead, operators have to rely on expensive, dirty, and theft-prone diesel generators. A wider but related consideration is also ensuring that power is available in the local community to charge devices. So we need to reduce these costs. I'm going to walk you all through our key findings across these 3 areas: base stations, backhaul, and energy, and discuss the role of innovation in connecting the unconnected. However, before we move into the main part of the webinar, I'd just like to provide a quick overview of our approach for this research. Working with our independent partners, ABI Research, our approach was split into 3 linked areas. We conducted extensive stakeholder interviews with experts from across the connectivity sector, including CTOs, CEOs, and product managers working on relevant innovations, as well as individuals with wider insights. This work was guided by and reinforced with secondary research in order to identify and unpack promising innovations. Finally, we conducted in-depth analysis of over 30 technologies in order to identify the most exciting or particularly relevant innovations. With regard to the innovations featured in the final report, and those we'll explore today, our intention was not to be exhaustive. With the fast pace of innovation across the connectivity space, we recognized from the outset that this would not be possible. Instead, we focused on featuring what we see as particularly relevant innovations those emblematic of trends, characteristics, or the needs and priorities of delivering mobile internet connectivity to some of the hardest to reach populations around the world. First, I'll start with innovations in base stations. And apologies, there's a slight delay on the slide. Our research highlighted that across the three innovation areas, innovation in base stations is particularly well developed. This is building on strong foundations, with the industry having made phenomenal progress in rolling out base stations. There have been nearly 14 million base stations installed around the world, and more than 20 million will be installed by 2023, 24% of which will be macro cells and 26% small cells. There's been particularly recent growth in small cell deployments. The graphic on the right tries to highlight a few key differences between macro cells, the larger installations that are traditionally used for most deployments, and small cells. The former, as mentioned earlier, are often sited on top of large towers which require extensive civil works, including concrete bases. These macro cells are particularly difficult to deploy in rural locations. They're expensive to build and maintain, with technology not always suited to rural or remote areas, and their associated costs are often too large to be recouped through operating rural networks. Reflecting this, the innovations explored in the report have a particular focus on reducing the complexity of these deployments. Small cells, illustrated on the right, often use more simplified infrastructure, a point which we will return to shortly. They can be particularly well suited to more complex environments and often require a smaller financial outlay. Finally, and of particular relevance, are the technologies provided by base station solutions. The provision of 4G and LTE is important, but we must ensure that suitable handsets are available, accessible, and affordable for all. If not, we risk reinforcing or even exacerbating the digital divide and preventing those with 2.5G and 3G handsets from benefiting from the mobile internet. Efforts to close the coverage gap need to be inclusive. As I just highlighted, larger and more complex macro cell sites are difficult to deploy in rural locations. They're expensive to build and maintain, and these costs are often too large to be recouped through operating rural networks. Instead, the innovations explored in the report have a particular focus on reducing the complexity of these deployments. They tend to use lighter towers, requiring less civil works, including doing away with the concrete bases that I just mentioned, and some are modular solutions, allowing community management or easy upgrades. They're also much less complex, with streamlined technology and plug-and-play architecture, and cheaper. All of these factors make them better suited to rural deployments than traditional macro cells. Examples covered in the report include a Huawei Rural Star, a lightweight design using poles 9 to 24 meters tall instead of complex 40-meter towers, and with no need for a concrete base. This simplicity in infrastructure does not limit its usefulness, though. It supports 2G, 3G, and 4G connectivity, and its non-line of sight wireless technology allows multi-hop backhaul. It has also been designed to function using solar power. The Ericsson Psi in the middle there is a very efficient solution, providing the same coverage as an ordinary base station with 3 radio units, but with less hardware. This means no sacrificing of network quality or end-user mobile internet connectivity. It is also scalable, able to meet growing traffic and usage requirements. More widely, these refinements enable the Ericsson Psi to be energy efficient, including able to be powered using solar power. This, combined with its rugged design, makes it a good option in more remote locations. The Nokia Kuha, on the far right there, is a community-focused solution, engaging communities in the provision of connectivity from setup to deployment and ongoing maintenance. It can also be integrated with Nokia's Fusion Grid energy solution, with even the provision of energy then being managed by the local community. This community focus has resulted in a stripped-back solution, providing all the features and functionality needed for deployment in particularly remote or unconnected rural populations. Overall, these innovations are all relatively well developed. The Rural Star has been deployed across the African continent, the Ericsson Psi is being utilized by Vodafone Egypt, whilst the Nokia Kuha has had a number of trials in rural communities in higher income markets. With regard to base stations, we saw 2 broad categories of innovation. First are the simplified lighter towers that I've just mentioned, terrestrial solutions which could reduce many of the costs associated with deployments. Second are the aerial solutions, high-altitude platforms such as the Alt-Era's Super Tower pictured here, which provide wide area coverage and have the potential to significantly reduce the cost of connecting large or particularly disparate populations. This distinction is particularly stark. Traditional macro cell solutions typically provide coverage of up to around 15 kilometers in radius. Smaller or more targeted cell site solutions may provide coverage to half or less of this radius. By contrast, high altitude and other wide area solutions may be able to provide connectivity to populations within a radius of hundreds or perhaps even thousands of kilometers. However, each setting, including the topography of the location and other contextual factors, is different. These coverage sizes may not always translate into reality for some deployments. These aerial solutions have a lot to offer. One interesting aspect is they're going to require collaboration with a range of newer actors, including aviation regulators and others. More widely though, they are new and innovative, but have yet to be proven in a commercial setting. We're watching them with interest though, as they could prove transformational in delivering mobile internet connectivity to the hardest to reach. Moving on to innovations in backhaul technologies. With regard to backhaul, all data, calls, and messages need to be sent to the main core network in order to reach their destination. This process is called backhaul and comprises of a range of wired and wireless technologies, as shown on this graph. As the graph highlights, the composition of backhaul technologies varies considerably depending on the context, and this is likely to continue to be the case for some time into the future. Microwave and satellite are particularly important technologies for connecting populations in sub-Saharan Africa and in rural areas more generally. The graph doesn't quite illustrate its importance though, as the majority of deployments are obviously in more urban, commercially relevant settings. The rural deployments obviously make up a smaller percentage of the overall total. Other technologies, particularly fiber, require significant investment and are more often deployed in urban and higher income areas. Although there are a number of backhaul technologies, each will require innovation in order to play a bigger role in closing the coverage gap. For example, although satellites and microwave technologies are key backhaul tools in rural parts of sub-Saharan Africa and elsewhere, they are not without their limitations. Satellite backhaul can be very expensive and create very high latency, making it less effective for mobile internet usage. Similarly, microwave's reliance on line-of-sight connectivity can limit its application in particularly hilly or similar areas. Reflecting this, the innovations in the report largely focus on making both satellite and microwave technology more useful than the provision of backhaul in rural settings. Potential role for innovation in backhaul is slightly longer term than the innovations in the base station or energy areas. This is because there is a fundamental shift needed to make backhaul cost effective and suitable for the most rural deployments. In particular, the next generation of satellite backhaul technologies, the low Earth orbit and medium Earth orbit, LEO and MEO, could transform the provision of backhaul, reducing costs and providing a good mobile internet experience for the end user. However, this sector has many players and a range of different technologies in the mix and is moving quickly. Business models are also yet to be defined. Similarly, innovations such as Loon are moving closer to commercial deployment, including having recently signed their first commercial agreement with Telecom Kenya. If such solutions can provide cost-efficient backhaul that enables a wide range of use cases, one of the biggest barriers to rural and remote deployments could be removed. Although aerial and satellite solutions have much to offer, it's important to not forget about microwave backhaul. Microwave has been playing and is likely to continue to play a considerable role in delivering backhaul to hard-to-reach populations well into the future. Historically, its need for line of sight has limited its application, particularly hilly or similar areas. However, several of the innovations explored in the main report focus on microwave innovation, including some delivering non-line of sight connectivity, such as the Dragon Wave X Harmony Light on the left here, which has been on the market since 2016. This makes microwave a more versatile solution and one that's increasingly viable in previously difficult areas. Its line of sight capabilities also support longer distance transmissions than some other microwave backhaul solutions. These features, combined with its plug-and-play modular system, enables quick deployment and lower labor costs compared to line of sight solutions that require technicians to correctly align antenna. Now, innovations in energy. Providing power to rural cell sites is one of the biggest barriers to extending mobile internet coverage to those hardest to reach. It is often one of, if not the most, expensive CapEx and OpEx outlay for operators, particularly in comparison to urban deployments. Rural sites, by definition, are often in locations that are badly served or completely unconnected to a national power grid. This creates additional complexity as suitable energy redundancy solutions are needed. The lack of reliable power supply can also have wider multiplier effects, in particular preventing consumers from charging devices. Currently, diesel generators dominate rural deployments. They are expensive, theft-prone, environmentally unfriendly, and high maintenance, requiring regular maintenance visits to ensure continued functioning and to keep fueled. Innovation in energy could be comparatively simple to measure, reduction or complete displacement of these diesel generators. In particular, renewable energy is playing an increasing role, with more than 4,000 cell sites powered by renewable energy currently deployed throughout the African continent. Although it comprises just 5% of all cell sites on the continent, their growing importance is clear. We've explored this issue in some of our other work, notably a case study in collaboration with CellCard Cambodia. Using a GSMA-developed evaluation model, this case study illustrated how CellCard has used renewable energy to bring down the cost of providing coverage, enabling them to spread the benefits of mobile internet more widely. In addition to renewable energy, fuel cell technologies have considerable potential to revolutionize energy provision. Innovations like the GenCell A5, in the photo on the left there, generate their own power from chemical or other processes and have the potential to considerably reduce operational expenditure. They're much more environmentally friendly, require less management, and can be monitored and optimized remotely, all factors that reduce operator expenditure. They're gaining considerable interest across the sector, although in some locations ammonia or similar supply chains need to be established in order to maximize their usefulness. We think there's considerable potential in this area, and if suitable energy supply can be provided for rural and remote deployments, it could be a significant and positive effect on closing the coverage gap. You can read more about the GenCell solution in particular in both the reports and in an even more extensive case study on the GSMA Future Networks website. Finally, I'm going to highlight some important thinking around the need for innovation in connectivity business models. As I mentioned at the outset, reaching the unconnected is increasingly an economic challenge. Reflecting this, there's likely to be a need to innovate in the types of business models that are deployed by operators and in all parts of the connectivity supply chain. This includes using innovation to tackle priorities such as theft of network equipment and also deploying a combination of innovations across networks. Innovations can also be highly context specific, so it's likely that a range of solutions will be required depending on the local geography, population, and realities. With regard to business models, with limited time available to us today, we're going to focus on a number of business models that may be relevant to driving and enabling innovation. We'll run through these in turn. First is the coverage as a service, the CapEx approach. This is a business as usual business model, which has been successful in rolling out connectivity globally. However, it has been less successful in extending mobile internet connectivity to more remote or rural locations. By contrast, the coverage as a service revenue sharing approach moves beyond the mobile operator as a single actor in deploying mobile broadband infrastructure. Instead, a rural-focused third-party operator raises funds to deploy infrastructure in areas not covered by and perhaps not strategically viable for a traditional retail operator. This can reduce operator risk and investment. This third-party operator can be wide-ranging. For example, the Peruvian Congress established the principle of the Rural Mobile Infrastructure Operator in 2013. These entities can deploy network facilities and operate in rural areas where no mobile operator has previously deployed. Community collaboration deployment model is a highly local approach, where the community is a central actor in connectivity, from site selection through to installation and day-to-day management. Using simplified equipment, this can be a useful targeted solution for particularly hard-to-reach locations. Finally, the energy and connectivity business model is a particularly radical approach, as it sees a mobile operator also functioning as an energy service company. In this model, solar power, supported by lithium battery storage, provides energy to small cell deployments, but also provides off-grid energy support to the wider community. In markets such as Sub-Saharan Africa, where only a third of villages outside of main urban areas have reliable and continuous access to power, this could be transformational. As highlighted in this table, delivering rural and remote mobile broadband coverage at scale, the revenue sharing and energy as a business model approaches are irrelevant. The revenue sharing approach, through having operators working with rural infrastructure providers on a revenue sharing approach, reduces the cost and risk associated with rolling out mobile broadband networks in complex settings. Because of this, its commercial impact and scalability are high, translating to a high overall suitability to inform the rollout of mobile internet connectivity in more complex settings. The energy and connectivity approach broadens beyond the delivery of connectivity, with an operator earning revenue from both providing connectivity and energy to the local community. As energy, as discussed earlier, is a fundamental and difficult part of connectivity rollouts, this model could increase the commercial feasibility of deployments and have a useful multiplier effect. In particular, it can allow local residents to charge devices that they could then use to access the mobile internet. This approach is explored in more detail in the report, but has considerable potential for commercial impact and replicability, hence also providing a strong foundation for rollouts in rural settings. Across networks, a range of such models will also probably be needed in order to address the very different markets and settings in which operators are working. There's also a need to align innovation and network deployments with wider and broader national and other strategic efforts. Again, energy provision is particularly relevant here. With increased decentralization of energy production and storage in many countries, there's considerable opportunity to align mobile broadband rollouts with these and other national priorities. More widely, innovation is also needed in ways of working, including in business strategy and network deployment. With regard to the latter, our new mobile coverage map tool can play a valuable role here. With this tool, we're supporting operators to increase the efficiency of their infrastructure investments by helping them locate and target uncovered areas with sufficient economic potential to deploy profitable sites. The tool overlays very high resolution population distribution data with a coverage footprint of the mobile operators in the market. This allows operators to identify the areas which are not covered by any operator, as well as to estimate the exact location and amount of population living in those areas. Furthermore, using this data, the GSMA has developed an algorithm to generate a list of the most promising uncovered sites, along with the recommended site configuration, whether macro site or small cell, that yields the highest return on investment and maximizes revenues. So, to wrap up, I won't go into this summary slide in detail, as we've just covered all the content, but include it here as a resource. We look forward to hearing your questions in a moment. Feel free to take a screenshot though. Rural optimized base station innovations are a viable option for locations not addressed by traditional solutions, with terrestrial products proving their worth now. Novel approaches, like the Alta Aeros Super Tower, have the potential to transform wide area coverage that need to be tested at scale. With regard to backhaul, new backhaul technologies such as Loon, new microwave approaches, and the next generation of satellite deployments could also make rural mobile broadband deployments more feasible. Finally, fuel cell generators and renewable energy technology could considerably reduce operational expenditure and remove a major barrier to delivering rural mobile internet connectivity. Overall, innovation is needed to reduce the three main cost drivers associated with deploying in rural locations: base stations, backhaul, and energy. It can play a fundamental role in delivering mobile internet connectivity to the final 750 million people around the world who lack this access. However, leveraging innovation also brings additional considerations. First, we need to avoid creating or exacerbating a digital divide. Connectivity needs to be accessible to everyone to ensure that no one is left behind from the potential that mobile internet and mobile technology more broadly can enable. As we've just covered, we also need to take a holistic approach to innovation. This includes in business models and ways of working, including using tools such as the mobile coverage maps, but also aligning with the efforts of others. We also need to commit to learning from innovation, including identifying what does and doesn't work, and sharing insights widely. It's in everyone's benefit. As we've seen, innovation can play a considerable role in increasing the commercial viability of remote and rural mobile internet coverage. We're keen to see the impact of the innovations and approaches that we've discussed today, as well as others, in the near term and further into the future. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate we've covered quite a lot of content in a relatively short amount of time. We've got a chat box open if you have any questions, and I've also included a link to the report here, and look forward to answering any questions. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your questions. We're posting them as they appear on our side. First, with regard to the presentation, we'll be circulating a download for the BlueJeans link, the recording, which includes the presentation. So we'll be sharing that in the next day or so. With regard to HAPS, so high altitude platforms and similar technologies, as we broadly cover in the report, technologies such as satellites, whether LEO, MEO, high altitude platforms such as Loon, Altair and others, can have the potential to play a valuable role in delivering connectivity, particularly in very, very hard to reach settings. As we mentioned in the report, some of these are as yet unproven commercially, but definitely have potential to play an important role. So thank you again for some kind words in the chat box as well. It's always appreciated. In terms of the mobile coverage maps tool, that is publicly available. You can go onto the website. I'll just put it back up again here. So mobilecoveragemaps.com, where you can model different kind of the coverage of different cell site solutions. We have that available in a number of markets and are adding new maps for new countries in the next few months or so. So I have a very interesting question around coverage statistics. I will caveat this with that I'm not an expert here. When we talk about mobile internet connectivity, we're looking at those who are registered on a kind of network or have access to connectivity. We're not looking at day-to-day usage in some senses. We're looking at more baseline, are they registered with a mobile network operator or not? But I agree that actually understanding their level of day-to-day usage is very important and something that in Connected Society we focus on more broadly, particularly in those 5 areas that I focused on at the start of the presentation. So we have a question again on the mobile coverage maps in terms of where we source the data from. The mobile coverage data comes from mobile operators. So we see GSMA as a trade association of the mobile industry, very strong links from the operators, and we work on a country by country basis with the main operators in the market getting that coverage data. Thank you again for all the questions. Just working my way through the event chat. There's a question around the Innovation Fund that we have as a Connected Society. So this opened, we just closed our kind of first round of the Innovation Fund. There's more information available on our website. This is looking at focusing on innovations and how they can be rolled out, particularly hard to reach and hard to connect areas. There's more on our website, and we should be looking to hopefully be able to share some insights with this around this next year. But keep an eye on that website and Twitter for more information there. With regard to telcos sharing sites, obviously the market does drive competition, but we do see there are a number of success stories where operators are sharing sites to the benefit of their customers and obviously to each other. It's reducing OPEX and CAPEX. There's a little bit more information in the report on this, and again, a bit more on our website too. And again, in terms of delivering those kind of coverage as a service and the partnership models, these can be quite varied. So we see an example I mentioned in the presentation in Peru, which is a legislated rural infrastructure operator, whereas in other settings it can be two commercial operators working together or a different setup as well. One final question, and then we might have to wrap up. Can you explain coverage as a service? Apologies that we jumped across that quite quickly. When we talk about coverage as a service, this is fundamentally, as the name describes, a mobile operator or partnership agreement, if it's a revenue sharing approach, delivering coverage to a population. We contrast this slightly with something like the energy and connectivity as a business model approach, where you're delivering something more than just coverage. So when we talk about coverage as a service, we usually talk about operators or similar entities providing mobile internet coverage to a population. I think that's the last of the questions, and unfortunately all we have time for. If you'd like to get in touch with any other questions, we have an email address on the Connected Society website. And I'd also encourage you with the slide that's on the screen there, mobile.coveragemaps.com. If you head onto there, there's a link to register to learn a bit more about our work, to keep informed about future webinars, other events, and also hear more about what we're doing, particularly around connecting the unconnected. Thank you all for your time, for dialing in, and for some very, very interesting and engaged questions. As I mentioned earlier, we'll share the report and this link to the presentation in the next day or so, and very much look forward to a dialogue going forward. Thank you all very much.